Hey everyone, thanks for joining our meeting today. Looking forward to chatting with you all about some of the trends we're seeing in the real estate market. And Dylan Plane, CBRE Silicon Valley, and let Jer introduce himself.
Yeah. Hey, thanks everyone. Inguagiato, CBRE Advisory Services. It's great to be with you. Really, we're really excited and appreciate you taking some valuable time out of your day. We know you've got a lot of competing competing elements for your time, and we do appreciate it. We hope there's a nugget or two that you take away from this presentation. Um, just some housekeeping. Today we're going to be focused on commercial real estate markets, market trends, best practices from a tenant's perspective. We're really going to look at today's presentation through the lens of a tenant, focus Silicon Valley, and just confirming the product type we'll be speaking to. We'll be addressing office and R&D product in the market. Two more items we just wanted to outline with you before we kick things off. We are going to record this presentation. There have been a number of folks that have said, hey, can't make it, but I would love to hear what you had to say. So we're going to record it and pass it along. And, high level, we're thinking this should be about 20 minutes, maybe 30. Discussion, Q&A. If you have a question, we'd love to hear from you. And what we found in these webinars is the best thing to do is just type it up in the chat. We'll collect them and then we'll roll through them at the end of the presentation and hit it head on. So we look forward to hearing from you and look forward to chatting this through. Thank you.
Yeah, jumping into it here, we wanted to first touch on a successful case study we recently had in the market, helping a high growth tech company. They're doing AI for automotive uses in robotics, and we'd identified them as growing, got in touch with their CEO, who helped us get in touch with their head of people and operations. And over the process of 16 to 18 months, we developed a really strong trust and relationship with this group and had ended up touring more than 25 properties, submitted 8 offers. And the key to this deal was letting the market come to us. And what I mean by that is we eventually identified a property that seemed to work for them, but we really figured out that the landlord was highly motivated. And when the time was right, we were able to secure a lease for them 55% below the initial asking rate on the property. And it met their needs. It had high quality, shorter term lease with several renewal options. So they don't know where their business is going to be in 2, 3, 5 years. And so we were able to help them secure a lease for a shorter term, but negotiate renewal options, which gave them longer term control of the asset, which was really attractive to them on that deal. Jared, am I missing anything there?
No, you caught it. I think in summary, this is just a great example of it was a startup, but they set up a strategy to act like a mature company, and that was the outcome. They got what they were looking for. They were able to leverage the market. And this one spoke to us because, it was AI, software, robotics, automotive. It checked a lot of boxes, a lot of demand in the market right now. Are those type of early stage innovators, next movers in the market, and great promising business plan, but they need the flexibility. We're seeing lots of that demand in the market right now. We thought this one, for a number of reasons, really spoke to those trends. Let's keep moving, Dylan, and we can jump into our next topic, which are some of the lease considerations, and a couple of them we can elaborate on that we got involved in this deal with specifically. But high level, we thought it was important because clients are always asking us when we help them with their leases. And by the way, we are not offering um, any kind of legal opinions. We're not real estate attorneys, but we're offering you a view and advantage from a commercial real estate broker standpoint. We've, at this stage of my career, I've negotiated thousands of these things and spent lots of time with clients, pouring through them. And consistently, these three topics that we've got up in front of you from a tenant standpoint seem to be the most frustrating for our clients for whatever the reason. It's really important. We wanted to stress that we could literally spend hours with you all on these topics. We're passionate about them, but we'll try and just high level touch a couple of key components here. In terms of operating expenses, we're challenged in the Valley. And I think that deal we did for that tech company in Redwood City is a great example. We're challenged because we've got an aging fleet in the Silicon Valley. I mean, the average age of an R&D building these days, we're running about 37 years. If you look at the useful life of major building systems, they're much lower. And so you've got those fighting at odds with each other, those elements that are just critical to the relationship. And it's a complicated relationship. Who's maintaining, who's covering, the repair, the replacement, so on and so forth. And high level, in a perfect world from a tenant standpoint, you're going to be able to negotiate an absolute gross lease. You have no responsibility for any pass-throughs. Landlord covers it all. Flip side is the landlord's looking for an absolute net relationship. Everything, all responsibility, all risk gets put onto the tenant. The fact of the matter is, in the Valley, there really are very few of either of those examples. Most of them are a hybrid, depending on where you are in the cycle of the market, depending on, the circumstances, you kind of fall between. And so the high level takeaways we felt specifically on that example case study we just shared with you, we were able, first and foremost, when we were evaluating the final candidate property with the client, we said, look, you got an old building. It's beautiful. It's cool. It's got these beautiful barreled wood roofs. It's got a great R&D environment. It's checking all the boxes, but it's old. So our client engaged and got a property condition assessment, a PCA, and head to toe evaluated it. And it came back that actually there was a brand new roof on that property. So we're like, excellent, A+. The challenge was the mechanical systems were old. In fact, some of the units, there were package units spread out throughout the property, were over 30 years old. And frankly, we were, really concerned about that. The high level solution was we negotiated caps and a success formula if things were to not work out with those major systems. Everyone was happy. We identified it up front and we came up with a plan. And I really feel like everyone came out of that negotiating table feeling really good about what's normally can be very frustrating for clients. That's high level, I think, what you want to keep your eye on for operating expenses. The next topic, restoration obligations. Again, this is one we often find clients just frankly overlook the clause. They don't necessarily pay too much attention to it. We've seen, a couple thousand square foot office deal. There's not much concern or risk with restoration generally, unless there's some customization. But where we do see, like in the example of this AI deal, the client's got to modify the facility because they're bringing cars in and out of the labs, and there's some treatments they need to do to the buildings. High level, it becomes very complex. Who's responsible when you get ready to turn back the keys to the landlord? And I would say what we typically see with clients is they just think, hey, the lease is expiring and we're moving on to our next deal. Here are the keys. And it's really, truly not that simple. In fact, it can be very dangerous and complex. We've seen instances where there's been a clause, something like tenant at the end of the lease has got to turn the facility back to an R&D shell. Well, so how do you define that? Well, it turns out the definition of the R&D shell is new paint, new carpet, a significant upgrade to the asset. Tenants not budgeting the time nor the cost to do that. There sometimes can be governmental permitting issues involved, so they don't have a proper handle on the timeline and the cost to do it. And we found some clients that have gotten themselves into wicked holdovers where all of a sudden the package between the restoration and the holdover is such that it's like a year, a couple years of rent. And so that's the second item that we just consistently see clients making errors on. And then the third are options. Dylan alluded to it in that case study. Options are critical. And in the case of that startup, it was giving them basically a 50% increase on their control of a multi-million-dollar asset at no cost. You got to have options. And we would say first and foremost is if you aren't able to negotiate options, if you're sitting at the table with the landlord, they won't give you options. That's a major red flag. You got to raise it. Ask yourself the question, why? Why can't I get an option? Is there another use coming down the pipe? What are you going to do with the building? What's my future look like in this asset? You need to be asking those questions. But generally, landlords are open to extending options. And then it comes down to, let's make sure when you have the option, it's fair. And in a perfect world, the option's not fixed at the last month's rent. There's some means of a fair discussion on what the option rent structure should look like. I think that pretty well does it. We can jump into the next topic, but I'm glad we got to cover those items.
And we'd be happy to take something offline and chat a bit more, take a review of your current lease and really dive into your specific situation offline. But we'll keep moving here.
Okay, so we talked through the case study, the setup for commercial leases, kind of what's going on right now. We did want to spend a couple minutes on what's happening in the market because there's a lot going on. We think there's lots of opportunity for tenants right now in the market. And so, what's the setup? What's going on? And what we've put up in front of you are some market statistics focusing at the moment the conversation on office product. And so there's two pieces of data here. You've got a chart to the left, absorption vacancy over time. And it's focused Silicon Valley only. The market's roughly 100 million square feet. And so that's what we're measuring. The bars represent absorption and the solid line represents vacancy, occupancy. That's high level what we're looking at, but the graph reveals quite a bit. And if you pay attention to kind of where there are more lines going up and the solid line is below, you've got a landlord market. So heavy absorption, low vacancy, that was kind of in 2015, 16, 17, 18, bit more of a landlord market. And then clearly and obviously past COVID 2020, we ran into a typhoon in the market. We saw, massive negative absorption and the market's really turned quite dramatically. But with that, we do see some light. We see some positive change that we wanted to highlight for you. And that can be indicative of that donut pie chart that we've outlined, where we're just calling out, how many deals did we see, office deals specifically, did we see in the fourth quarter? What was the makeup, the breakdown? High level, we had about 60% of the deals were new net lease deals. And 30% were renewals, where if you looked at that same pie chart from a year or two ago, it was the inverse. Very low new net demand. It was more kind of people hunkering down, renewing. So there has been a shift. And if you compare just overall the big three, industrial, office, R&D, in 2024, we saw roughly, 450 transactions over 10,000 square feet. And if you compare that to last year, it was around 390. So we're up about 60 deals. It's about a 16% increase. And so we really are seeing the math to support there is a change in the market, a positive change. We want to see this velocity and absorption in the market. In terms of a couple takeaways that I'd like to leave you with in terms of market setup, we saw in the fourth quarter of last year, it was the first quarter in 2 years where we saw positive net absorption, more space taken off the market than put on. That was a huge trend. We saw major occupiers, big, huge household names making new commitments to the market. And we saw some emerging groups doing really big bets on their business. And that was good to see. They also, by the way, because of their leadership, these folks got some incredible deals. But overall, our clients are saying, hey, we had to, reduce the footprint during COVID, but now we're ready to dip our toes back in and expand the business, or look at expanding the business, or actually taking down a new office. So we're seeing renewed interest in the market. The flip side, though, is that on an interesting footnote, that we actually have, in terms of new capacity coming to market, there are no office buildings under construction on a spec basis right now in the Silicon Valley. There are two office construction projects, both are pre-leased, one to an end user and one to a medical group. But other than that, no construction. And so high level, we think the setup going forward, and this is what I'll finish with this slide, is back to the vacancy line. You can see that kind of orangish color, which is our four CBRE metric advisors, and our research team have put together a forecast, where are vacancies going. And clearly, we think we're at the top. We do believe the really, really good stuff, we see it getting absorbed, and that trend's going to continue. No new supply coming to market. It's just going to continue to accelerate and push vacancy down. Don't yet know what that overall means for rents, but high level, it's a trend we need to be aware of and see where this goes. I'll pass it along to Dylan for a setup on the R&D piece.
Yeah, thanks, Jer. I'll quickly touch on the R&D piece, and for everyone's benefit on the call, we define R&D as 1- and 2-story product that generally has some makeup of office and either lab or warehouse or manufacturing space, all under one roof. So it's a combination, and it's actually the largest product type in our market. There's 150 million square feet of it. And as you can see on the chart on the left, we're running about 11% vacancy. It's ticked up a little bit over the last 3 to 5 years. But really what we're seeing is kind of tale of two R&D buildings. There's the single story with unique power and infrastructure and lab components to it. That stuff's really seeing strong demand. You can't do those jobs from home. And then the 2-story product that it's generally more office use. Those tenants are trying to lure employees back to the office. So they're moving to higher quality office spaces, more amenitized, more glass line, kind of more of the Class A type of product. Keep moving here.
Yeah, thanks, Dylan. Our next topic is flight to quality. And we were thinking about, these discussion points, and we're going to share some examples that completely illustrate there is a flight to quality, no doubt. Take advantage of it. But we're keeping our eye on occupancy, and we thought this was a very telling statistic. I don't know if everyone can see my badge with my Arizona Wildcats lander. Big game tomorrow for those guys. But at any rate, all of us have one of these Castle system cards. And what's interesting is that they put together research which we've been keeping a keen eye on for occupancy. And what we're putting forth in this slide is a little bit of research on occupancy, specifically Silicon Valley, San Jose, San Francisco, so the Bay Area, and then how does that set up against the other major metros across the U.S. And I really like this piece of information. I think it's just good to see a trend like this. But high level, the graph that we're looking at is occupancy. Y-axis is just a percentage of occupancy, and then X-axis is time. Last 2 years, March of 22, 23 through 25. And if you look at the occupancy of both San Jose and San Francisco, it's the dotted lines, and they're running about 40%. They have been. And you can see the dips, which would correlate to like the 4th of July is that one dip. And you can see that the third dips would be Thanksgiving and then, the holidays, New Year. And then same examples again, moving to the right on that graph. People aren't afraid to get out of the office as they should. But the point, though, is that I really want to draw your attention to is if you start looking at San Jose specifically in the last 6 months, that occupancy line starts. There's an inflection going on. It's moving. It's changing, and I feel it. I guarantee you, every one of you on this webinar feel it and see it. My wife and I were out to dinner with some friends downtown Palo Alto Saturday at a fun restaurant, and we were asking the owner, "Hey, how's it going?" He goes, "Man, last 3 or 4 months, like business is just booming." And I was lucky enough to attend. NVIDIA hosted that conference, GTC, last week downtown San Jose, and our office is located downtown, so it was very convenient. But the amount of energy and people that were here this year versus last year, you feel it. At least I do. And I feel like this is reinforcing these statistics. They're real, and it's reinforcing what we're seeing. So there's a change. And then when you stack up our markets, and unfortunately, by the way, we're not seeing it in San Francisco, but we are in the South Bay. But when you stack it up against the major markets, Texas is is at the top of the heap. Houston, Texas is the most occupied CBD in the country, followed by Dallas, Austin. They're all running 61, 63, 64% occupancy. San Jose's coming in at the moment at 53. So we're just sitting outside of the top 10 average of the top 10 metros. So interesting trend. I think generally speaking, that's going to accelerate. All things being equal, we'll keep our eye on that. But that sets up for our next slide that Dylan's brought up. And this would be just a poster board of all all 6 of these deals, with the exception of the top right-hand deal. That was done in 23. But the other 5 were all inked in the 4th quarter last year. And a picture tells 1,000 words. These are, you look, they're just absolutely stunning, beautiful, brand new, the best our market has to offer, architecture and design and construction, and they're all brand new, never occupied, gorgeous opportunities. And they're all subleases. They're all plug and play. They were all acquired significantly below replacement cost. Now, it wasn't the property owner that offered that discount. They're all subleases. So they're generally, tech customers that have done long-term leases, committed to the market, and then made the decision to shed some of that capacity. And so there are folks that are stepping in their shoes that are getting great deals right now. So that's exciting to see. The one anomaly to this group would be the lower left-hand corner. That's an interesting deal. It's a adaptive reuse. It's a new use within the project in Santa Clara. It's a long-term land lease, but nonetheless does demonstrate the long-term type of commitment to the market. So let's keep moving, Dylan, on the slides. You've just brought up our next slide. I referenced, and I'm going to try and speed this up here because I see we're hitting the bottom of the hour. I referenced GTC, and like I say, I was lucky enough to attend that. I hope some of you have. If you haven't, it's worth listening to the CEO Jensen's keynote. It was awesome. I was in the Shark Tank. There were easily 20,000 people in there. It is like a rock concert, and you've got a tech CEO running it. But what dawned on me and a lot of people I've talked to that have attended or listened to the keynote, we've all kind of said, God, there were really 2 big takeaways from his message. And the slide that we've got of Jensen in front of what is their prediction for top line revenue for their firm for data center GPU shipments. Yeah, $1 trillion of top line revenue is significant. So Jensen was effectively saying, hey, we're projecting this growth. The biggest component to our growth is power to support our growth. And he made this revelation or at least distinction in the discussion. He's like, look, your revenues, your revenues are power limited. And it was very telling because in California, I think if anyone in the United States is living it, it's us. We've had some major challenges with our utility grid at large. It's been very frustrating and scary at times, honestly. But so here's the CEO making this proclamation. It was very powerful for me. And then the second piece of his presentation, I would say he spoke for about 2.5 hours. And of the 2.5 hours, at least 20 minutes were about robotics, AI, robotics, and how they're converging right now and how they're really scaling and becoming real. And he made this comment about, there's going to be, the prediction is a global shortage of 50 million workers to support a global GDP by the end of this decade, by 2030. And his prediction was that the robots are going to fill the gap. And I thought that was pretty profound, pretty exciting. But both of those remarks really fed into the next set of deals that Dylan will take you through.
Yeah, pretty fascinating and cool to see what Jensen's saying, but actually have it play out in the real estate markets. And what we have in front of you is it's 6 of the major R&D deals that occurred in the past 6 months. And every single one of them has a unique power or infrastructure component to it. And the people who are leasing these are all the people that have to do with what Jensen's working on and the companies that are all behind him: robotics, AI, compute, data center. That's all that is the demand in the R&D sector that we're really seeing growth from. And every single one of these deals, the differentiator is it had heavy power or a unique characteristic to it that is different than the rest of the market. And so we've seen really strong activity for these buildings. And frankly, there's not many left at this stage in the game because they're being gobbled up quickly.
Yeah, this is our closeout slide, and we're calling it market opportunities. Where's the opportunity? And we thought creating a kind of a funnel would help visualize where that opportunity is. So on the left, you've got an office funnel. On the right, an R&D funnel. Office, 100 million square foot net rentable area, 25 million available, 13% vacancy. So there's lots of opportunity. We think there are incredible deals for tenants right now in the market. There is no doubt. But we do believe you've got to keep your eye on those strategic, highly amenitized new assets. If you start to boil down that list of availability, we're identifying 2 million square feet. So the numbers start to change. And of that 2 million, 1 million of it's at one location. So that's an area that you got to keep your eye on. So yes, the overall statement, there are opportunities, but you've got to be smart and keep your eye on what are the trends that are occurring. Same thing holds true for R&D. It's a huge market, 150 million square feet, 20 million available. Of that, though, if you look at assets that are similar to where kind of the hot piece of the market is, highly strategic, unique, utility type of investment infrastructure, zoning, those sorts of dynamics, the list starts to narrow down. So high level, we're excited. We think there's lots of opportunity, but we also think you've got to get into action and to take advantage of these opportunities. So we'll wrap things up here. We've got a minute here for Q&A. I think, Dylan, we can turn it over. If we run a couple minutes over, I think we can do that. That we can follow back with you.
Yeah. If anyone has a question, feel free to add it to the chat, or as always, can follow up with us later. We did have one come in from Jeff, and it's, how are tenants viewing the market and where are asking rates going?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, tenants, Dylan and I were with a client this morning that's, they were in 20,000 square feet pre-COVID. They've downsized to 5, and now they're looking at going back to 10. They want to push the business, but they want to be conservative about it. Their attitude is, hey, it is a tenant market, and I'm going to be bold. And we support that posture. But it's our job to help them understand. There's a market and there's a reality of a market. Let's push it. Let's be aggressive. But everyone's got to win at the table. And so I think that tenants, as they should, they feel empowered. And I think the challenge is, where ultimately do those lines cross for the transaction? And then in terms of the rent question, rents have kind of held flat on an ask basis. But what we're seeing specifically on where deals are getting struck, if there's strong credit, if there's a long, kind of unique commitment, we're seeing, you know, conservatively 10-15% off of those asks to get deals done. On a 5-year deal, we would expect a credit tenant to see some free rent, a very nice TI package, and more to follow there. But that's high level, I think, where we're at.
Great, Jared. Thank you. I don't see any other questions in the chat, so just want to thank everyone for taking a few minutes, and happy to chat with you offline anytime, but we appreciate everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.